What's up, everybody? Michael Tyne here, and hey, we're back! And this is the second episode of What They Played, the interview show where we talk to people in the game industry and around the game industry and just find out more about them. Today's guest works at Supergiant Games. He was a writer and creative director on Bastion and Transistor. He's none other than Greg Kasavin. So guys, sit back and relax and enjoy the interview. This is What They Play, Episode 2. What's going on, everybody? This is the second episode of What They Play. Today's guest is with Supergiant Games, and he is the writer and creative director of Bastion and Transistor. Used to work with EA, used to work at 2K, GameSpot's former editor-in-chief. This man's done it all. This is Greg Kasavin. How you doing, sir?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm great, and I'm thrilled to have you. I know that particularly a lot of people on Twitter and Giant Bomb, when I announced that you were going to be on, had some questions for you. We'll get to that later, but they're excited. I'm excited, and I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you.
The format of the show is pretty much this. What we want to do is kind of plug your mind a little bit. See, as you know, being the developer of a successful indie game, we want to know a little bit more about that process. But also, I want to know a little bit more about you and what you did, what led you to where you are today. And then at the end, we'll get some fan questions. So, are you ready?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds great. The first question that I have for you, sir, is as being an indie developer, that term gets thrown around a lot. When you say indie, that used to mean something very significant, very small, and that is expanded to a lot of things now.
Yep.
What does the indie term mean for you as far as just the name indie? What does it mean?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It doesn't mean a whole lot, and it never has. I don't think you'll catch me ever using the term except sort of in quotation marks.
Right, exactly.
Wanting to I use the term independent to describe our studio because that's what we are.
Mm-hmm.
In that it's a small studio owned by the people at the studio, and we have self-funded our projects. So it's like we're not making games for like on someone else's dime, and that's what independence means to us. But indie as a term, it's like it reminds me of like alternative music in the 90s to make a rather dated analogy. But like when alternative music is like all you hear on the radio, it's like not really alternative anymore at that point. And indie has kind of grown so broad to like refer to so many things and teams of so many different shapes and sizes that I think people like have some intuition around what they think it means, but when like you're pinned down to define it, it becomes really difficult. I think, you know, some people use it to refer to like a certain aesthetic of games,
right? But
then, you know, Ubisoft is making indie games now, you know, like Child of Light or something. Well,
Grow Home, kind of.
Yeah, and people. And then people can kind of debate all day long as to whether this is indie or that's indie, and I find those kinds of debates rather, you know, they're sort of pointless, right? Like when you get too hung up on the semantics of something, it's like, what's the point? Talk more about the merits of the thing and stick with that. But certainly we've seen the kind of a lot of smaller development teams emerge over the last 5 or now close to 10 years or something like that, and it's just reflective of the way the business has shifted, the way that bigger studios became sort of it became really hard for bigger studios to sustain themselves, and digital distribution became much more of a thing, and that meant smaller studios like Supergiant could come into existence and you know, with some luck actually survive.
I really, really agree with that statement, which leads me to the second. There's like a second part to this question, and that where you may not classify this yourself as indie or you know, like I did the quotes because you kind of almost have to. It feels like you should.
Yeah.
But places like Steam, there's an oversaturation of what they consider, or at least what the marketplace is bringing forward as indie.
Yeah.
I believe that there are hidden gems out there that will never get noticed because of the oversaturation in the market. I fear for that anyways. It may not, you know, the community, when they find something and they bring it to light, that is an amazing thing. But what is your take on the sorting system that places like Steam have? Because I feel like without the financial backing of someone bigger bringing it forward, throwing the advertisement dollars, so to speak, at the front line, how does a developer get out there and show that this is what we have? This is the product that we want to bring to you, and show all that hard work. How do you get to the front line when it's that saturated?
Yeah, I mean, so that's if I knew the answer to that, I would be extraordinary. I would be sitting in a castle right now. I think that's that's the question of the day. I think for smaller developers, you asked kind of a twofold question. One is about what do I think of the sorting system on Steam. I think that Steam does it as I don't know how it could be done that much better, really, considering the volume of games that go through the service. Steam over the last couple of years has sort of opened up the gates. There's like the green lighted. There's more games coming out on Steam now than ever in the past, which is due to customers and developers like asking Steam to do that. So
Right.
these days, people sometimes complain about it, but it's like it's a bit of be careful what you wish for. What I think it's a really good thing. Like the alternative is the world in which there are these potentially great games that can't even be published. At least today, these games can be published, right? They
Right.
can be sold. Then they still have all the challenges of like actually getting noticed and being purchased and making money. But in the past, you couldn't even sell them at all, right? So it's a big improvement in that regard that you could actually like publish a game on a digital platform like Steam, and then then you kind of you obviously have to do more than hope for the best. I mean, the ways to get noticed, to your point, don't necessarily involve spending a bunch of money on advertising. I mean, that works for some people, but for smaller developers, they usually don't have the means for that, or even if they did, it's not necessarily the most efficient thing. I mean, so much depends on the game itself, and but also developers, I think, doing creative things with their games, engaging their communities, and like just kind of not saving that stuff to the last minute. Sometimes it works. You have these games like this is a number of years ago now, but the game Limbo, I think it's kind of like a classic game at this point. I don't feel like anyone had heard of Limbo until just like a week or two before it came out, and then it became a huge hit because the mystery of it was kind of so strong. But typically the strategy of like don't say anything about your game until it's out is not that does not work well in most cases, I would say. I think for most developers, they have to work at it and try a number of different things. I mean, for us at Supergiant, what's been effective is as soon as we're ready to like say anything about our games, to have them be like playable and to bring them to a show like PAX, and basically just like let people start playing them and get their hands on them, and hopefully the game is good enough to where people will tell each other about it, because there's only so much we can do ourselves.
That word of mouth. Sense. That word of mouth, it means a lot, especially in those, like you mentioned, PAX. Like that is what that is for. Getting that word out, and then hopefully that person, whoever has that video footage, will share it on Reddit, see what they think.
No, right, and the game itself is gonna there's only so much you can. Like there's only so much you could do to like tell someone that this game is gonna be so awesome. Like if they play it and they don't think that, then you're kind of in a bad spot.
No, it really is. Yeah. Play more.
Your best chance. I think, for smaller developers, having stuff that's playable, I think it's true for bigger developers also. Partly our strategy is like partly in response to, big developers like withholding gameplay for so long. Often, like games are announced a year before anything playable is shown. It's like, well, show me the real game. Like I want to be convinced that this is something I can actually play, and not just like a super expensive trailer or something.
Exactly.
So yeah, I mean, I think approaching it that way has been effective for us, but we also come from, Supergiant started back in 2009, which is kind of like a generation, it's not that long ago, but in internet time, it really kind of is. It's the days before like Twitch and stuff. So we're not necessarily, they're developers who are like live streaming their development every week and stuff. That stuff like that is super cool. I think different developers find their own things that like they're both comfortable with and also just kind of excited about. And I guess that's the good news about it, is that they're there really isn't a formula to like getting people to pay attention to your game, but it certainly doesn't happen on its own either most of the time.
It doesn't hurt when you put out a game like Bastion and it hits as well as it did. And correct me if I'm wrong, you can play Bastion on pretty much everything, right?
Maybe not quite everything, but we've been really we're so incredibly kind of grateful for just kind of I don't even, I'm stammering right now.
That's okay.
We don't have the words for like how well regarded that game has been, and it's made it so that we have had good reason to bring it to different platforms. Yeah, like I never would have imagined that we would, like, it just came out on the Vita last month, like, and the PlayStation 4 earlier last year. Like, I never would have imagined that we'd still be making versions of Bastion this many years after it originally came out. But hey, people
want it.
People want it, so we won't hear me complaining. For us, it's great because we love the game. We wouldn't be here if not for it, and it's always cool to hear from people who haven't played it before or who are maybe coming back to it as well.
So we have Bastion on this hand. We have Transistor over here. Both of them different experiences that borrow similar elements from one another. Is there a huge desire to completely break away and do something completely innovative, and obviously say what you can, with something completely different that just kind of sets it to a different tone in the next thing that you are working on?
No, I mean, that's a great. It's a good question. I mean, I think, like, for us, the element of, like, it's really important for us to continue to push ourselves and to surprise ourselves. And for us, Transistor really, even though Transistor ended up having these similarities to Bastion, like, certainly from a genre perspective, we consider both games action RPGs, and they both have this kind of 3/4 isometric camera perspective and so on. For us, Transistor was a big, like, really pushed us out of our comfort zone in a variety of ways. In ways that were really challenging during the game's development, but felt really kind of honest and good also. Like, it was good that it didn't feel easy. Bastion wasn't easy. Transistor wasn't easy. I think if we're, like, sort of too comfortable with what we're doing, then I start to feel uncomfortable in a totally different way. It's like, no, something's wrong. This can't, like, we need to be trying to grasp at something we don't know if we can reach. I think that's important in whatever we do. And I think the result of that, whatever that, the result of that process should be something that hopefully is surprising both to us and to other people, whatever it is. So we're, when we started Transistor, we didn't, like, set out to make an isometric action RPG or whatever. It's just like the design process had us come around to certain similar decisions where it made sense for that game. But each of our projects, we have only 2, but each one of them we've sort of approached holistically of, like, what's right for this project that we're working on. Sure. And I hope that we will sort of continue to operate that way, whatever result it produces. So that's kind of a long answer, but that is to say, no, I don't think we want to. We've never said, like, oh, we're the isometric narrated action RPG people. I think we are very open to we would like to keep surprising ourselves and others if we can, whatever form that takes. We also felt that with Transistor, there was just, like, a lot. We just felt there was so much room to explore in the action RPG genre. So I don't know where the future's going to take us. We talk about a lot of different things, and we love all sorts of different games. So I don't think anything is off the table for us, really.
Awesome. I want to commend you for something real quick. We got through the meat of the questions without you saying the word Hearthstone once. So, I was warned by you. Yeah. The first response I got back when contacting you, the first response back was, hey man, we might just talk about Hearthstone for 2 hours. So
I'm fully capable of doing this. Fair warning. So yeah.
Do me a favor, like, just off the cuff. I have notes. They're not on the notes.
Yeah.
I attempted to play Hearthstone. That is not my genre of game, but the
Yeah.
buzz around it caused me to want to go look at it. I don't quite get it, personally.
Yeah.
Sell me on Hearthstone right now.
Yeah. I hate selling people on stuff.
Then don't.
Because I think if it's like if you tried it and you don't think it's for you, I think that that's fine.
Hmm.
Um,
I
I was
feel
never
maybe
I
I feel
I
maybe
never
I
got
didn't get
into
it.
like I
Sorry.
never played stuff like Magic the Gathering or whatever either. I've like never been into collectible card games, which is what Hearthstone is. I mean, and I don't know, it grabbed me very much to my surprise. But yeah, I think it's appealing in the way that card games are appealing.
Hmm.
And card games have been around for so long. I think because there's something really base and like universal about them. This people speak in these metaphors of like playing the hand you're dealt. Sometimes
Right.
life gives you a bad set of cards, but you got to play the so that like that kind of universal truth that is in card games is very much in Hearthstone. But Hearthstone happens to just be a very interesting kind of strategic game that's easy to understand but really difficult to master, and
Hmm.
can have a lot of surprising and fun interactions, and kind of the pace of the average game is kind of just right. So for me, uh, part of why I got really into it when I did was like I could just play it for a few minutes at a time, like putting the kids to sleep or whatever. I play it on iPad and computer, so it was very convenient to play a little at a time.
Accessible. Very
Yeah, and then all of a
accessible.
sudden I'm like playing a lot of it, and single stretch and so on. But it's a different. It feels less of a commitment to begin like a given Hearthstone match than to like hunker down and say I'm gonna play until dawn or something like that. Like I need to really get comfortable and make
Hmm.
sure I have no distractions, and I'm gonna play this like immersive video game now or something like that. Whereas Hearthstone, you can just blow through a couple of games and it's all good, and suddenly it's becomes an all-consuming aspect of your life.
Your
I
number
don't know
one.
that that is selling you on it. That is
No,
just
it
how
did.
I personally got sold on it.
I think I do need to give it another look. In a world where I also have three kids as well, I do need and need to acquire more of those games that I can pick up, play, put down, walk away, and come back. So I understand that. So yeah, I'll give it another look. With that said, this section is a little bit more just about you, kind of quick, rapid fire ish questions, but curious questions nonetheless. Hence the name, what they play. The first question on this list is: as a kid, what was the game that Greg Kasavin could not conquer? What was the hardest game
Oh,
that? And if you did conquer that, that's fine. But what is the game that was the bane of your existence as a kid?
so I thought you were gonna go somewhere else with that.
Oh no.
I was the sort of kid, I kept like a notebook. I kept like a kill list, right? It was like a notebook of all the games I finished, and it was like pages long. So I kind of refused to be. I could finish just about any game I played. The one that comes to mind immediately though is the original Ninja Gaiden for the
Oh
Nintendo
man.
Entertainment System. So my experience around this game, and it's like notoriously a difficult game, although it's a really great game. But this is a game where I finally got to the final boss, and of course the final boss has like three excruciatingly more difficult phases or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Final phase of the last boss, like one little sliver of health, one more shot, I'm gonna kill him. He kills me instead, and it's one of those things where when you run out of lives, it like kicks you all the way
Oh yeah.
back to the beginning of the excruciatingly difficult level and so on. So I like very calmly turned off the Nintendo Entertainment System, removed the cartridge, and just never played that game again.
Wow.
Just
Okay.
like, GG, you win game. I'm done. That game just like defeated me at the last possible moment, and yeah, I never kind of gathered up the guts to try it again, even though it's a game that I look back on very fondly. So
I've lost too much fast twitch muscle fibers to play that anymore. I
yeah,
can't do it.
I can't with it anymore. It was a long time ago, but yeah, games were like harder back then because they were about like an hour long, so they were just designed to crush you over and over and see how far you could get.
This is true. I actually asked this before in a previous interview, but it's a question that I kind of it begs for me to get an answer. I love this answer. I love to know what makes people give this answer. But on the channel, we played through, me and two friends of mine played through Until Dawn. And the way that we did it was every episode that we played, we passed the controller onto each individual person. So we were constantly messing each other up. Yeah. But because we played it that way, it made it such a memorable experience. And that's, how can I put this? The game is not the best game on earth, but it's not bad by any means. It's a lot of fun. But because of the way we played it, it ended up being my favorite game of 2015. Is there a game that you can recall in your history of playing games that may have not been the best, but because you experienced it in a certain special way, it holds a higher tier to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of games like that, right? For me, like there's something very personal about the experience of playing games, and I think for sure like external factors or just like how you play them can really have a big impact in general. So I feel like there's a lot of stuff like that where there are games that aren't necessarily the best games, but stick out to me in my mind. But I'm trying to think of like a specific example, and the stuff that I don't know, this is another just like really dating myself kind of old example, but
that's all right.
Maybe it's something like the original EverQuest or something like that.
Oh wow!
which was my first exposure to. That's actually not true because I'd played like Ultima Online. I've played what we call MMOs like kind of since the beginning. Right. I have not played them really in years, but EverQuest was like the first MMO that was just like completely enthralling. Mm-hmm. And that game had a lot of problems. It had a lot of rough edges and really weird design choices, but something about that world was so incredibly engrossing, and yeah, just like playing it with just like being in the same space as some people you knew was really, if you'd never experienced something like that before, it was had this kind of magical feeling. And
Absolutely.
That world, the world of that game, like World of Warcraft, which people are more familiar with than EverQuest. It owes a lot to EverQuest. Mm-hmm. But EverQuest is kind of like, for those who haven't played it, is kind of like a cross between World of Warcraft and Dark Souls, to use like more modern examples. It was like really punishing, where you could, if you died in a certain place, you may have invested 1,000 hours in your character and all the cool equipment that you have, and hey, guess what? You're stuck. You're never getting that 1,000 hours worth of equipment back. It's gone. And like, it made the world of that game feel so dangerous and crazy that like exploring it with some of your friends made it really like pretty profound, even though the game had all these kind of ridiculous issues that you had to put aside in its first couple of years.
I mean, it's a definite investment. You feel invested, and that's it ties you to the game in a way that not everything can do. So that experience means a lot, and I completely understand where you're coming from. One more question about the just about you, and then we have a few fan questions, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, the one last question about you is: video games don't exist anymore. There's no games, and they never existed. Yep. They never did. Yeah. What would you be doing?
I have no idea. Okay. I don't know. It's something I've thought. I've tried to run this thought experiment myself, and it's really hard for me to say, because like video games have really, for better or worse, I mean for better for sure, I guess, but they've been the one constant in my life, and they are my earliest memories involve video games, and it's been the one thing I've always had going for me. I think even when life hasn't been good, I was still playing games that I enjoyed. It's something I could like go through my life probably year by year, and it would take me a while at this point, but I could like tell you what I was playing probably in any given year of my life. So the idea of like, what if that wasn't a part of my life? Well, I don't know what I would have filled like 50% of my life or more. Like it's like on a percentage basis, it's been such a big percentage of my life that I just don't even know what I would have done otherwise. Yeah, and there are plenty of other things I enjoy. Mm-hmm. And I love writing. I like all sorts of stuff, but but not in the same kind of deep down, not in the same way, I guess. So I think my life would probably be a lot worse, honestly, if I had like sort of never been exposed to games and never got into them. It's almost unimaginable to me, as you could tell from my answers. So
That
it's
makes
not true.
sense.
Yeah, not true for everyone, but for me, they've been something very positive in my life.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Okay, so I'm going to butcher this name without a doubt. Nayoko. I'll put the name up here so they can see who they are. They ask probably the most important question out of everything: chicken wings, bone in or bone out?
Oh, man. This is like a religious debate that I don't have a horse in this race, man. Either it's fine either way. Why can't we all just get along?
Okay, from
It's
me,
fine, man.
from me, spicy or mild then?
I'm more of I like spicy stuff.
Okay, I had to add that. So,
Yeah.
all right. This next one comes in from a member of Giant Bomb. What happened to the camera equipment that Giant Bomb gave you for building a Bastion?
Well, there's like a camera specifically. There isn't more equipment than that.
Okay.
That camera is still in the possession of Supergiant Games and may be returned to Giant Bomb on request, on demand. We filmed during Transistor on a number of occasions, but not. So I think the question is referencing when Bastion was in development, we did kind of like almost like a documentary series with Giant Bomb where we would like film the development of Bastion like pretty regularly, and then hand over all the raw footage to the folks at Giant Bomb, and it is Vinny Caravella at that point. He would just kind of edit it together into a thing. We'd see it live on the show ourselves for the first time, and then we'd kind of talk about it. It was really, really fun to do, and the fact that people still remember it to this day, I think goes to show something good about it.
Absolutely.
But we didn't do the same thing on Transistor, even though we did some filming. It wasn't the same, because it wasn't the same story. Like our studio was, it wasn't like the story of a bunch of guys that kind of never just formed a studio, that sort of thing. It's like, hey, we've done this once before. We didn't want to just kind of rehash the same type of thing, and so we never did anything with it, but we did do some filming, and I think one day maybe we'll gather up the guts to actually go and watch that. It'll probably be kind of terrifying to go back and watch some of that stuff. It's always scary to confront your past. So that's what happened to the camera.
This one also doesn't have a name attached to it, but fast forward a couple years. Elder Scrolls 6 is out. Will you be doing a 12-hour stream?
I am happy to play Bethesda role-playing games many hours at a time on stream. So yeah, right. that was a thing that that's referencing when Oblivion first came out. I did like a 12-hour gameplay marathon thing before that kind of thing became really at that time it was more of a ridiculous thing to do. These days it's not. These days 12 hours is nothing.
Oh, I watched all 12 hours, don't get me wrong. This question hit me closer than that, because I watched that and I watched you play Skyrim too. So
yeah, no, I mean I would love to do those. I love those games. I like play them a lot when they come out anyway, so playing them on stream is not a lot of additional effort really, and in fact it just makes it more fun. So yeah, I'd love to do that. I'm sure I figure they will come back to Elder Scrolls at some point.
Sure, I would hope so.
That hard to imagine.
Oh no, I really hope so. I miss it. I miss it a lot. Last question that I have comes in from Joey Elliott. He asks, what was the process like in finding the narrator for Bastion? Logan Cunningham, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
What was the process like, and when did you say, that's it?
Yeah, so the process was very simple in that Logan is a longtime like personal friend of Amir, our studio director, and Darren, our audio director and composer. So that and that's kind of the part of the story of how Supergiant was formed. It's basically like a group of mutual friends, or at least everyone was connected to Amir in some way, who's one of the co-founders, along with Gavin. So Amir, Gavin, and I worked at EA together, and then Amir has this other group of friends from like going back to like middle school and stuff. So we knew we wanted to do something with narrative, but we didn't want to like interrupt the pace of the gameplay. So one day
Sure.
Amir's like, well, let's try doing something with voiceover, and this is a few months into the early pre-production. So just calls up his buddy Logan, hey, can you record a few lines and put him in the game? And turns out Logan's got a pretty good voice. He's like an actor. Logan is an actor by trade. He'd never done any stuff in games before that point, but for a small studio like ours, it's all about just taking advantage of what you do, just trying to make the most of the resources that you have available to you, and knowing someone with Logan's acting talent gave an inroad to at least having some voiceover in the game, and then but then it had a bigger effect, I think, than we initially anticipated, and we just there wasn't a thought up front of like, oh, we're going to make a fully narrated game. That was something that happened during development as we started putting any.
Uh-oh. I've lost you.
Make this like a pervasive.
I lost you there for a minute.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying.
Sorry.
It's. Can you hear me now?
I can now.
Yeah.
The last thing I heard was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just decided to go all in on the narration aspect of the game and make
Gotcha.
it a pervasive part of the experience instead of just like the intro or something like that.
Awesome.
So yeah, so it's all thanks to Logan, and we worked with them, of course, on Transistor again.
I mean, it's just, for instance, I was telling someone about me getting the privilege to interview you and talk to you about, the things that you've worked on. And I said, and he's a little younger than me, but I said, you remember Bastion, right? And he goes, Bastion. I said, the narrator guy and the voice, and I just trying to give him, it was, yeah, that game. Like, immediately, like, it brought back those memories. So, really, his voice ended up being, like, the winning Powerball numbers for that game. And just, so it was, it's pretty awesome. That's all I have for the fan questions, and I guess the last thing, and literally on my paper, I say I have plug whatever you want. So what are you working on? How can people, and you don't have to say that obviously, but where can people check out your work? What are you doing, any vlogs or blogs, or where can people check you out now?
Yeah, I'm just Kasavin on Twitter, my last name, and Supergiant Games on Twitter. Also, I Supergiant Games is the way to keep up with all the stuff I'm like actually working on. Yeah, we keep pretty quiet, kind of in between projects. We like to have our quiet time to figure out what in the world we're doing, and that tends to take us a while.
Right.
But yeah, we're very much keeping busy, which is cool. Like excited to figure out what's next, and the great news for us, at least, and hopefully for people who've enjoyed our games, is that like we're sticking together as a team and still kicking, and that's kind of all we want. We just want each of our games to be able to do well enough so that we can make another one after that, and if we could just keep doing that for a long time, that would be great. And here we are. We've been doing it, so that feels really good, and hopefully we can keep making stuff that surprises people and leaves a good impression.
Mr. Greg Kasavin, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, welcome back. I just want to say thanks one more time to Greg Kasavin for coming on the show, giving us the time to just talk and chat about anything, really. I really do appreciate it, and thanks again. What They Play is growing every single day. I'm in talks with more people to come on the show very soon, and I can't wait to show it to you guys. It doesn't happen without you, and it doesn't happen without the generosity of the people coming on the show and giving us the time. It's so fun, and it's so awesome, and it's exciting. Thank you. Thank you to everybody involved. The fans, the people who are on the show, everyone. I really, genuinely appreciate it. But guys, it's that time to end the episode, so last but not least, you know the drill. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, become one of the Titans, and I'll see you guys in the next video. now, everything looks... looks good to me.
Good enough.